Can you tell me how that joke came about?
Because it really happened.
Can you tell me that, about that?
Yeah, Frank had I think, those 5 guys are not around today, so I can tell you. Maybe 2 guys are around today, we better check. Frank had like a love-hate relationship with me because I would never do what Frank wanted. He wanted to eat Italian food every day. Well, I was sick, I was in Miami Beach, and I don't eat Italian food. I'm married to an Italian, I don't eat Italian food every day. But in Miami, there was a place called The Famous, which is a famous Jewish place to eat. And I wanted to go there a couple of days of the week. And Frank would not go. He would say to me, we're going to eat so-and-so. And I said, I won't go. And if I left, he would go looking. He would send people looking for me. Until it got to be, wait, you're going to get it. Wait, you're going to get it. Wait, you're going to get it. Well, one day I came in kind of umbeschrigen, as they say in Hebrew. I was a little inebriated, and I was walking through the lobby at the Fontainebleau, and the 2 security guys that worked there that were getting paid by him, and the other guys, one of the boys from Chicago, another guy, and they grabbed me and they started whacking. I split the one guy's nose. It was a pretty bad trip. I went to the hospital. So I went to him one day and I said, you know, this is not going to ever be forgotten. When you and I are alone one day, everything that happened to me is going to happen to you. And I forgot about it. That was just a threat from a guy that was hurt and everything else. But I still worked with him. And he wanted me to go on tour with him, which I would it's another thing I turned down. I said, I don't want to. He called he called Cupson in Chicago, Earl Wilson in New York, telling me he fired me from this trip, and I'd never signed for the thing because I didn't want to work for him. I was getting $25,000 a week in the lounge in Vegas, and he said I wasn't getting that money, because when I went with him, he was going to pay me the same money that I got in Vegas. So when I got my first check, it was $4,500, and I said, what is this? Because my piano player was making $3,500 at the time. He said, that's your salary. I said, for what? I said, I make $25,000 a week. He's, you're a liar. So we called up Vegas. I got Eddie Torres, who was one of the owners. He got out and told him I was getting that kind of money. He said, I'll make it up to you when we do the picture. We did Tony Rome. I found out that unless I was to write my own movie, the movies were not for me. It was really a disaster. But I got $25,000 for doing that picture. That I think I had 3 lines.
So do you think that Frank was able to keep Dean and Sammy and all of them in line? That's why they, I mean, do you
Yeah,
think
I think they were frightened of him. I'm going to tell you, and I don't care because Sinatra likes me, he likes me. If he doesn't like me, that's fine too, because I like Sinatra. I got Sinatra records in my car, I got them in my home, you know. I don't listen to them, but I've got them. Sammy came to Miami. Sammy was working Washington. And Sammy came to Miami because Frank called him and says, get here. And Sammy and I walked after he got there and he talked.
Airplane, I'm sorry, can we start the story?
That's Frank. That's a bombing right now.
You got a fallout shelter. Hold on a second, just listen.
We're not talking about nightclubs or anything, but if this is what you want to discuss, we'll discuss it. Okay.
We're clear.
So Sammy, after he had this little meeting with...
Let's start from the beginning. Sammy was coming to Miami.
Sammy was working a place in Washington, or doing something in Washington, I think actually for the president. And Frank called him and says, get here to Miami Beach. And he got on a plane and he went. And he came to Miami Beach. And now, after he finished with Frank, he and I took a walk. He said, I don't know, I frightened to death. He said, why I came here. He says, I'm supposed to be in Washington. I said, get on the plane and go back to what? What are you doing? I said, you got a career of your own. I don't understand you people. You're a big, big star. What is this? What is this fear that you people have with this man? And they really lived in fear. Joey Bishop, I mean, hey, it's Mr. Sinatra, you know. Well, Mr. Sinatra, if you saw Mr. Sinatra in some of his, he could be the greatest guy in the world. Let me preface this before I get in too much trouble. He could be, and it's charitable and everything else, as good as they make him, probably better. But if you saw Frank in some of the bad days, it's very frightening. It's frightening the way he would treat some people. Throw the food down, the steak wasn't made right. I mean, little people. So if you go I mean, if you do something for somebody, do it for the little people too, you know. And I saw this
So go ahead about.
paradox.
Right, so go ahead about Sammy.
Oh, you're really interested in this.
Yeah, I want to.
So Sammy left, you know, he says, that's it, and he went back to Washington, you know. But, I mean, that's the way he controlled people. He had control over, Dean, the same thing, he had control. And I'm sure with Ava Gardner, he didn't have control. Ava Gardner just used to call him the hoodlum or whatever she called him, because he used to tell me, we'd have 2 drinks and then he would start to talk. And he loved to talk. He loved to live in the past. His present was pretty good, and his future was going to be pretty good, but he loved to live in the past. He just, I think he enjoyed the Dorsey days. I think he enjoyed when somebody else had control. I think he really basically wanted somebody to say, cut that crap out and bada boom, 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 boom. And you'd be surprised how big guys, when somebody says, cut it out, hey, the guy told me to cut it out.
But I know for a fact that there were guys who could tell Frank what to do, because his old friend down in Atlantic City was Skinny DeMarco.
Skinny, yeah.
And Skinny treated him, and I got this from Willie's wife, I got a lot of people to talk about those days in that club, because I was interested in that 500 club, because Dean and Jerry got there, there were a lot of performers in that 500 club. But an older woman who was married to Willie told me the greatest thing. She said when she was a young girl, Frank came to Atlantic City with Harry James. There was a little kid, he walked into the place, and Skinny DeMarco was there, and he said to the chef, do you think you could make me a plate of meatballs and spaghetti? And Skinny DeMarco went over to Frank Sinatra, who was really a kid himself then, and said, remember one thing, if you want to be an important man, you never ask, you order. And she claims that Frank Sinatra was molded by those guys who would play in the back room of the 500 Club, poker for 30,000 a hand, never letting him in that. I mean, she always said that Frank Sinatra and Dean and all of them, they wanted to be with those guys, but those guys didn't want entertainers with them. Of course, they told Frank. There's a great story that I have in this about how.
No, before you tell me the great story,
Yeah, go ahead.
let me interject and say that when he worked for Tommy Dorsey, that's where he learned to order people around. Not from Skinny Amato, not from the back room at Skinny Amato's or anything else. He learned from Tommy Dorsey, because that's the way Tommy Dorsey was. And now you can tell me any story you want to tell me.
That's a great piece for the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is that Grace said that, because she was, you know, I only like to get people who were first-hand witnesses. She said she remembered before From Here to Eternity, I guess, and around when he was breaking up with Ava, right after Manny Sachs died, and who else died? Manny Sachs from Capitol died, and the other guy, I think George Evans died. And Sinatra had lost, he had no record contract, and he had lost his MGM contract, and he went back to Atlantic City, and he stayed at Skinny DeMarco's house because Grace was cooking. And she said she can remember Skinny sitting at the table saying to him, Frank, don't worry, you're going to be back bigger than ever. And there was another guy there, I don't remember his name, but he ran clubs in Boston. And he handed Sinatra $5,000 and he said, Frank, when you're back on top again, you'll come to Boston, you'll play my club, things are going to be fine. And Skinny went out and bought Sinatra a watch, which he always wore when he came to Atlantic City. And that was that. And he went and did the movie, which he really got, my understanding is he got because Ava Gardner had a lot of swing to get him the screen.
Well, they say that. I really don't know.
I don't know.
I'll tell you, you know what happened? That picture ruined another great comic. That picture ruined Jackie Miles, because Jackie Miles was signed to do that part. Yes, and Jackie Miles, when they gave it to Sinatra, Jackie Miles, who drank anyway, just drank that much more, and he was never the same.